The 2022 Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony will take place on my birthday. But more importantly, there's someone else's birthday who happens to fall on that day. I'm not talking about Jennifer Lopez or Michael Richards or fellow YouTuber Boogie2988. I'm talking about another July 24th birthday.
Home run number 300 for Barry Bonds.
When speaking about any topic that could be construed as controversial, I often feel the need to admit my biases up front to avoid being the type of person who overconfidently preaches his opinions under the guise of objectivity. I was a Barry Bonds fan growing up. Admittedly, he was my favorite player. I even made pro Barry Bonds YouTube videos on an old account back in 2007 when YouTube was basically in its infancy. Just as I like to be upfront about my biases on controversial subjects, I also like to steelman opposing arguments instead of strawmanning them, meaning I will attempt to form my argument based on what I feel is the strongest version of the opposing argument, not the weakest like many like to do. This means I won't be making arguments like, steroids don't improve your eye and hand coordination, or he never tested positive. Instead, we're just going to throw out all of the questionable seasons on his record. That's right. And we won't even replace those additional years with projected stats based on a combination of Barry's skill and the typical major leaguer's decline, which probably would still give Bonds over 600 career home runs and over 500 career stolen bases. We'll just pretend that he abruptly retired after the seasons no one questions. So, what is last season no one questions? Based on all the sources I've dug up, that appears to be the 1998 season. After reading a number of sources quoting people who know Barry Bonds personally, they claim he was upset over the attention Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa got during their epic home run race in 1998. This makes too much sense. Elementary school Raymond vividly remembers the deity status the sports world bestowed upon McGwire and Sosa as they chased Roger Maris's single-season home run record. Meanwhile, on August 23, 1998, Barry Bonds hit his 26th home run of the season to become the first player in MLB history to achieve both the 400 career home run milestone and the 400 career stolen base milestone. But no one was interested in that history. It probably didn't help that McGwire and Sosa also both homered that day. Anyway, we're going to pretend Bonds abruptly retired following the 1998 season, giving him a 13-year career. We'll compare key numbers of that 13-season career with a short list I compiled of recent Hall of Fame inductees who played primarily outfield, first base, or designated hitter since those positions are often judged by their offense. Larry Walker, Harold Baines, Vladimir Guerrero, Edgar Martinez, and Jeff Bagwell. As I compare the stats of these players, I'm going to give you some context because I believe that facts without context are meaningless. The first piece of context I'll give is actually the first stat I'll give, which is the number of seasons. From 1986 to 1998, Barry Bonds played 13 seasons, which is the lowest among these players by 2 years. Now we'll look at the awards. Despite having played the fewest seasons on this list, Bonds won the most MVPs with 3, while the others on this list won a combined 3. And this is on top of the ongoing debate in baseball circles that Bonds may have been robbed of another MVP in 1991. As for all-star appearances, only Vlad has more. Just one more in his 3 extra seasons. Bonds won the most gold gloves on this list despite playing the fewest seasons. And only Vlad's 8 Silver Sluggers tops Bonds' 7, again by just 1 in Vlad's 3 extra seasons. Now let's look at some efficiency numbers to give us a clearer picture of the offense Barry Bonds consistently displayed in comparison to these contemporary Hall of Fame inductees. His on-base percentage is second to only Edgar Martinez. His slugging percentage is second to only Larry Walker, probably due to the decade Walker played at Coors Field, more on that in a moment. Combine the two stats and that narrowly gives Bonds the highest on-base plus slugging percentage on the list. But if you look at OPS plus, the difference between Bonds and the rest of the players on this list is not so narrow. Why? Because OPS plus essentially takes a player's on-base plus slugging percentage and compares it to other players during the same time period by setting the average to 100. And it takes ballpark into account, thus the aforementioned Larry Walker slugging percentage. Let's continue with at bats per home run. Even in the years from 1986 to 1998, Barry Bonds hit home runs at a higher rate than anyone on this list. And looking at plate appearances per strikeout shows that Bonds also struck out less frequently than anyone besides outlier Vladimir Guerrero, who was notorious for not taking either walks or strikeouts. Speaking of walks, I cherry-picked stolen bases and walks as the only counting stats because I feel these numbers create a little more distance between what Bonds brought to the table compared to the average Hall of Famer. Votes are announced on January 25th. Hopefully the writers put their silly agendas aside and do the right thing.